Welcome to Scene, where the art world meets the real world. Every 2 weeks, we sit down with emerging and established artists to offer a genuine glimpse into their lives and minds, all in an authentic and totally straightforward manner. I'm Carrie Scott, your host. And with 2 decades of experience as a curator and art historian, I firmly believe in the transformative power of art, if it's seen. Right. I am incredibly excited to be sitting down with Jonathan Schwartz today, the man, the myth, the legend behind what has to be one of the coolest, if not the best, art handling, shipping businesses on the globe. And I have known about Atelier for my entire career because they've always been the biggest, the baddest, and the best. Maybe not the biggest, but the baddest and the best. I stand by that. And Jonathan actually got in touch with me, which made me feel like I'd made it this summer because I was using Atelier to install a show in New York. And they were so exceptional that I was screaming about it on Instagram, as I am apt to do. And Jonathan said, oh, hey, well, I'm in town and I'd love to come meet you. And I was like, hold on, the guy that started Atelier is in town and wants to come meet me. That's cool. And so here we are. Jonathan, I'm so pleased to be talking to you. I'm sorry for the really awkward podcast style introduction where I make everyone feel weird. But we've had feedback about just launching into these without introduction. And people have asked me to do the spiel. So you get the spiel, you get the love, and I hope it didn't make you want to die.
I'm handling it. I have my coffee.
With choice words.
But thank you.
With choice words on them. Thank you so much. But seriously, can you tell us a little bit about how on earth did you come to build this absolutely epic business?
Well, it wasn't my intention to do that. I was looking for a job that allowed me time to pursue the things that I thought were most important to me at the time.
Which was what?
Which was playing in a band, making artwork, looking for a flexible work schedule. And a friend of mine read an ad from the New York Foundation of Arts, NYFA, which is like where a lot of people get their jobs in the art world. A small company based in LA was looking for a cross-country truck driver to deliver art across country to galleries and museums, collectors. And I said, that's perfect. I wasn't much of a driver, so I kind of faked it till I made it, which is insane. And in those days, it was still, we're talking mid 80s. There were only a handful of only art handling transport companies out there. They were usually a division of a household mover or something like that. And in New York, it was the Seven Santini brothers and Ollendorf. So it was still the early days. And this was a cowboy, if not a pirate outfit. And their prices were good. So, I hit the road and that's how I learned it. And just, by myself on a truck that didn't have all the proper permits. So I had to get off of the regular highways and avoid way stations. There were episodes that made me want to run away, but I just kept at it for a while. And then at a certain point, they were having some money woes, some business problems. And so I ended up pivoting to being a local art handler in New York. And then eventually a company on the West Coast contacted me to be their correspondent for shipments coming in and out of the New York area. And eventually they hired me, and that lasted about 6 months because it was just undercapitalized. And again, this was like everything was done the way it should not be done. And my girlfriend and I left the country for a 1-month vacation. They sent somebody out from the West Coast to stay in my place. I'm just remembering coming back from that vacation, and he was gone already, and there were pans in the sink. And there were maggots in the pans.
Oh, no, stop.
That was a sign. Yeah. That was a sign. So anyway, during that vacation, I was thinking about, should I start my own thing? There were a number of galleries that I worked with in the New York area that actually brought them to this client, and we became somewhat friendly. It was Max Protech Gallery. It was Mike Bliss, who was the gallery manager. Galleria Joan Prats from Barcelona, who had a New York gallery at the time. And I became pretty friendly with the people who ran it. Dorothy Bird and Jim Bird, who was an artist. He wasn't part of the gallery. He came along for the ride. And finally, Jack Shaman Gallery, who, of course, everybody knows about Jack. And to this day is one of my closest friends. And he was very supportive of me starting this thing, which I did. And that's how it kind of all happened. And we just grew from like a little outfit in Dumbo, Vinegar Hill area of Brooklyn, which by then was like, at that time had not become what it is today. It was very desolate, very, abandoned streets, abutting a project. And, but it was a perfect incubator for, there was actually another art shipping company that was a couple of blocks from us. It's a perfect incubator.
And what kind of year was that?
That was 1989 that I started the company. 36 years ago.
I mean, that's just epic in and of itself, right? Like to have a business for as long as you've had it, the things that you must have seen and done, which we will get into. But how about the name? How about the fancy pants name? Why Atelier 4?
Well, it was a bit of a joke, but it was also a nod to a group of people that I met when I was out of college. A teacher of mine connected me with a group of artists that were affiliated with an art school in Holland called Atelier 63 in Harlem. And Ellie Content, Toon Verhoef, Jan Dibbets was part of that group. Marlene Dumas was part of that group. And Ellie Content himself, who sadly passed away a couple of years ago, ended up becoming also an incredibly close friend, probably my last most significant mentor. And he taught me so much about cooking, actually, and other things. And we stayed close to, and now to this date, I still have this big Dutch association, this Amsterdam family of mine. But the name Atelier came from that. And the number 4 comes from a childhood affinity for 1960s Marvel comic books. There was a comic called The Fantastic Four, and I'm like, why am I using that? For 2 reasons. I read this book by Roger Shattuck called The Banquet Years, and it was his treatise on modern art, what created modern art. It was this uninhibited, unbridled, youthful inspiration and not becoming jaded in your older age. And it was Guillaume Apollinaire, Alfred Jarry, Eric Satie, and Henri Rousseau. And so I was like, okay, so what meant a lot to me when I was a kid? And it was that comic book. So I took the 4, which I thought would look really cool on T-shirts, and the Atelier, which was also kind of making fun of the pretentiousness of the world that I serve. Sorry, clients.
I hoped you'd say that. I really did. I think, but I do think that one of the things that you and your team do so well is walking that line between being like, it's all kind of just silly, isn't it? And then this like ridiculous reverence. So every time I've used any of your installers, that's exactly how they all are, right? That's white glove service. It's like they understand the work, they understand what they're trying to do, but then they're also like, come on, this is not life or death, guys. Like, get some perspective. We're just hanging some art, which I think obviously comes from you. But what I want to know is how on earth do you find your team? Because you've built up this like remarkable reputation because of the crew that you've got, that you work with. But how do you find them?
I mean, it's harder and easier today. It's easier because 30 plus years ago, nobody even knew that this was something that you could do. Very few people did. And now probably because of the art fair phenomenon, it's worked its way into, popular culture. And everyone thinks that it's like, oh, so glamorous. And the low barrier of entry is usually art handling, actually. But of course, we have a rigorous training program. And about 20 years ago, we brought in a young man named Gary Cullen, who today is the vice president of technical services for A4. And he's very much that same spirit that I feel like I brought to the company in those days, with a deep knowledge and reverence for what we do, but also incredible sense of humor and absurdity, very much like Alfred Jarry, by the way, Uber Ra. How can you not love that? But he's serious too. I mean, he graduated from Pratt and he goes back there to help teach the science or the physical application along with the science of fresco, doing fresco. So, we've got people with mad skills and we got people who know how to enjoy themselves. And, hopefully we found our way to probably two of the three ideals that I set out to embrace. One is to work with people that we like and respect. Two is to work for people that we like and respect. And three is the thing that we'll probably never be able to practically embrace, which is only work with the art that we like and respect. That's probably not going to happen just because it's very subjective, right? Whoa. Also, it's like I live in a capitalist country, and there are certain things that I have to do. I won't promote tax avoidance, but I will definitely move works that I don't personally love. But I will treat them like I love them.
Fair. That feels like a fair. Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah, look, if it's important to you, it's important to us.
Nice. What?
Yeah.
Can you tell us some stories? Like I have for instance, which we had a Terrence Coe that I put in a show years ago, and it got stuck in customs. God knows why, but it did. And so it didn't show up until the very last minute. I basically had to spend all night at the gallery installing this thing with one tech. And it was it was an unmitigated disaster. We were trying to drywall with a hairdryer. Just all the things. You must have 600 billion stories like that of last minute disasters or shipping foibles or install stuff. Can you tell us any of them?
I don't know what you're talking about, Carrie. Nothing ever goes wrong. We were at an artist studio with the crew from National Geographic. They were just looking for content, which is part of the problem that we have today, is that everyone's looking for content, which means maybe they're scraping the barrel. So, and they wanted to see, there needs to be with these, basically it's like a reality TV show, and reality TV shows thrive on some form of drama, and the drama is all contrived. They've got to create it somehow. And so you have the film crew asking my team, so tell me what could go wrong? They're like, nothing. But that's why we're being hired. But no, things do happen. Of course they happen. And sometimes they are, like you mentioned, custom. Sometimes they are a factor of somebody, fat fingering on the keyboard, putting in the wrong harmonized tariff code or something like that. Value discrepancy. All the countries are becoming a lot more attuned to the value of artwork, and they're looking for fraud.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's beyond anybody's control. For instance, we were moving, it was a museum show, and I probably shouldn't mention names, but it was artwork that had some components in it that had to be registered with U.S. Fish and Wildlife for the export.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens on the other side is my partner's role, but I can only speak to what happened on our side. So everything was fine with this, except I believe one of the elements, and it was either a feather or a shell, which is a tip. If people really understand what I'm talking about, they could probably figure out who the artist is, but maybe not. And one of those items joined the list of CITES, which is basically an international agreement on not moving endangered species or, things like ivory, right? So this item entered that list, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife contacted us and said, you have to bring that back into the country immediately. But it was touring. So that we had to hire a customs attorney, and we were able to work it out. And it was maybe like $3,600 in legal and permit fees. And we bought some time, and it was able to complete its at least that venue before we brought it back in. So that's kind of boring and very, that's a museum-y story. That's a registrar story. The registrars are the people who hire us, and to them, that means something.
Yeah.
But to an art viewer or even a curator, it's either boring or a huge annoyance.
Or it's a bit of a, if you have a show that opens the next day and you're installing a Terrence Coe and you're pulling an all-nighter to do it, right? You wished you'd hired A4 to do the paperwork, because I'm sure it wouldn't have gotten stuck. But what about things getting stuck up stairwells or having to remove windows to lift things?
Oh, yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, well, I wish that shrink wrap were, I wish that was literally a solution and would actually make things smaller, but it doesn't. It's a bad joke, but it's a joke I made back in, I think, 1990 for a client where a painting was too large to fit into their house. And he said, how are we going to get it in there? And I said, do you have any shrink wrap? Took a little while before he's like, I don't think that's going to work. But, there are things that we can do with a canvas, and there's not too much impasto on the surface of it. We can get some sawhorses out, and we can cut the stretcher bar, slide a piece of masonite in between the stretcher bar and the canvas, cut the stretcher bar, get some mending plates, fold it on a tube, bring it in, put it back, stuff like that. So some clients of ours, there are pieces that they insist on rotating in their collection, and they require us blocking off an entire city street and putting in a 40-ton boom crane to get that thing, on the roof and then through, it's crazy stuff. Or using the window washer rig on the side of a building at the very southern tip of South Beach in Miami, and making sure that the wind is not above 7-8 miles an hour, and then, hoist a Anselm Kiefer crate 40-50 flights up. Fun.
Mean, those paintings are not small.
No, they're heavy. Another interesting story is I live in Charlotte, North Carolina most of the time. And if you're from North Carolina, you may have heard of an artist named Ben Long, who was Bo Bartlett's teacher, and he was trained in Italy. He was a fresco artist. His frescoes are all over North Carolina and probably a couple of other states. And there was a gift from a family to a hospice center where they obviously had a family member there of these two pieces that were put into the chapel of the hospice center. And the hospice center wanted to, they had an opportunity to sell these works and raise some money. And the buyer was, I can probably mention this, the Rumble Memorial Presbyterian Church in Blowing Rock. And during the pandemic, they contacted us, and I just moved to North Carolina, where we've been established here since 2017, but I moved in 2020. And I fielded this call, and normally I would have turned a job like this down, but like I didn't know how much work we were going to have in 2020. So I entertained the conversation and did a site visit, and we got as much information as we could about this work. But ultimately what we had to do is we had to, in a hospice center where they have oxygen tubes in the walls, we had to get oxyacetylene torches to cut the metal brackets that secured the metal framework of this fresco to the walls. So, they told us they turned off the oxygen, and it was insane. And also when we got the piece off, we found out that it wasn't just plastered, as a traditional fresco is. There was also concrete behind the substrate. And so that added to the weight. And we had made this steel A-frame to remove the painting off and kind of glide it through the room, through the door, through the hallway, into our trucks, bring it into storage for a couple of years, and then rig it to the second floor of the church and install it. I mean, that's like the Olympics of art handling. And we all feel very proud of ourselves, but we really appreciate picking out little framed artworks and putting them in a commercial bin and rolling them into the truck and delivering. That's also very nice.
I bet, in comparison. Here's the thing, though. How much do you ever install?
Me personally?
Yeah.
I mean, I did everything in the beginning. I was the bookkeeper, the crate builder, the truck driver, the art installer. In 2002, we hired a gentleman who is still with the company today. He's the head of our freight forwarding department. He's a licensed customs broker. English is his fourth language. He got his passed the exam the first time, which is rare for even English speakers. And so I never was a customs broker, but I know enough to get into trouble. But I probably, the last art handling gig I did was in early 2021, after I'd moved to Charlotte. We still had a bit of a skeleton crew. And so I went out on the road to install with the team. I think that was the last time I did it. But no, I don't really do that much anymore.
Do you miss it?
No, I don't. No, I don't miss any of those activities anymore because I do so many different activities now that it keeps it real.
Well, and here's the other thing. I'm sure many a person has said to you that it would be worth you writing a memoir, because I reckon you must know all the actual things that are happening in the art world in a way that nobody else does. Not only because, right, you know where things are going and where they're showing and who's got them and who's bought them, but also because, I tell our installers everything that's going on in my head, whether I'm mad at like the client or the client's being ridiculous and I need them to help me like calm the client down, or right, if I'm stressed about, God knows what. We basically tell installers everything. So you've got all the keys to the kingdom. So when are you going to write your memoir?
Probably never. It's certainly, what I think about is I think about writing history is what I think about, because the history of transportation is kind of interesting, and especially in this. And because of my activities in the only trade association that our industry has, I've met, and I've been doing this for a while. I've met the owners of pretty much all the companies that do this around the world. And it is an interesting story. Andre Chenu is a 270 plus year old company. They moved Marie Antoinette stuff. That's pretty wild. It's not owned by the Chenu family anymore, but it wasn't long ago that the Chenus were still involved. I might write one of those, but the thing is that it won't be while I am involved in this company, because I don't know if you are a fan of baseball, probably not, but there's a gentleman named Jim Bowden who pitched for the New York Yankees. And I believe when they won the World Series in 60 and 61, and he wrote a tell-all called Ball 4, and he was banned from Yankee Stadium for decades. Mm. So, and also part of doing the job that I do really well is to, I mean, aside from our tongue-in-cheek persona on social media or whatever, we try to like not do too much of that. We're supposed to be kind of invisible, actually. You don't want to upstage the bride, and the bride is the artwork.
It's a perfect answer, and it's why you've been in business for as long as you have, I'm sure. What do you think's the most surprising thing you could tell someone about like what you guys do that they wouldn't know unless they were part of the art world?
Well, I was at a conference a year ago. I think it was a year or two ago. I can't remember which one it was. But one of my colleagues talked about walking dogs. Now, we don't do that. But some art handling companies will walk the dogs of the clients. I wasn't prepared for that question. So that was the first thing that came to my mind.
I mean, who knew?
No, I mean, look, it's when you work for a gallery or you work for a museum, you're not going to be walking dogs. But when you're working for art collectors, especially if you're there all the time, they trust you. They're comfortable with you. And you might end up doing some domestic chores, maybe. If you have the time and they actually want to pay you art handler rates for that sort of thing, I suppose that could happen. I don't think we have any clients like that. I don't. But I would say just like any other really good service business, our employees, and I mean from like art handler up to management, probably does a fair amount of social work with the clients. You know what I mean? When there is that sort of trust and someone's having a bad day, we will show our human side. We will not have a codependency, but we will listen. So there's a little bit of that, I think.
And when you pull back and look at kind of your career and the business's longevity, what's your favorite thing about the quote unquote art world?
The art?
Such a good answer. I mean, you must have seen everything, right? And touched everything, you lucky human being.
I was just looking at some reviews of the Kerry James Marshall show at the Royal Academy. And the New York Times had a really good review. I read Artsy's thing today because it said like the 5 most memorable paintings. And the largest one, I remember installing that in 93 or 94. Dude. And that was like when I saw that. I mean, yeah, I remember handling a lot of those early works. Such an amazing artist. I think when I first saw that work, it was when he was still doing, I guess he maybe still does, but it was the grommet paintings where the paintings were on grommets. Yeah. And I looked at that painting and then I looked at a few more paintings. I was like, oh my God, I think this is the greatest painter of the 20th century. Maybe we could say the 21st century. I don't know. Pretty amazing.
The show is remarkable. I've only ever felt that way once when, with Rashid Johnson's latest survey show, there's works that were at the Goog, and there's works there that were in the show that he and I did together in like 2006, 7, something like that. I can't remember now. And seeing those, right, like they were pinned to the wall. There was this triptych that was literally, I pinned it to the wall. Like I installed that show and with Jim Harris and seeing them then in the Guggenheim and you're like, whoa, like for that, they're, old things you
carried.
Yeah.
Does Jim follow you?
Yeah.
Hey, Jim. I love Jim.
He's the best. I mean, talk about learning on the job. That man taught me how to spackle, to paint, to build crates, to pack work. And he was like fastidious. He'd be like, if it's raining, you're going to want the tab to be running this way so that, right, like when we were literally packing things, if it was held the right way around, the rain would run off it. And then all the while he was also teaching me like how to really look at art and not be an academic, and sell art and not be an academic. And he is the most amazing mentor I've ever had. He's great. I love that you know him, but you know everyone. So like,
well, yeah, I remember Jim from his days at Rena Branston. Rena, she's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
She's incredible. No, Jim's so great. Such a good dude.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I asked you best bits, worst bits of the art world.
There's an old Yiddish saying about business would be great except for the customers. Luckily for me that's not really the case anymore. I don't know. I mean, it's look, we have just shy of 100 employees. So it sounds like a lot, but we're not even close to the largest. But that's a lot of people. Thank God I have an amazing HR person, because the days before that, it's a lot, it's a lot. So what I don't like is when there's discord. That's what I don't like. And that's just a social thing, maybe. Not necessarily an art world thing. It's not unique to the art world. And also, not all of our employees are art enthusiasts. As a matter of fact, my favorite art handler is somebody who has good hand-to-eye coordination. They're good with, basic math and Euclidean geometry, nothing super technical. And they can be taught art sensitivity. They don't have to love it, but we try to bring people together so that nobody feels excluded. And they have this great work ethic, because for them, they're a tradesperson, and that's what it's about. For me, that's number one. Number two is, somebody with art sensitivity and an art background who doesn't mind rolling up their sleeves. Those are the best things, but everyone's going to have a bad day. So it's just trying to create a good work environment. But even though we really go out of our way to do that, sometimes things get rough. Also, the other thing is that we operate trucks that are driving thousands of miles every month, 25, 27 vehicles. That's the part that I panic about.
Yeah. Well,
honestly.
And given you said that you weren't a very good driver, I can imagine that it does for you with other people.
I mean, I became a very good driver very quickly, but it was like, this is in the United States, it's a lot of automatic transmissions. But back then there were no trucks, at least that I didn't know of any trucks that had manual transmissions. So I had a truck that had a split axle, which means 18 gears. And so it was like, we say, grind it until you find it. So that was the beginning of it. But then I had to drive across Colorado. It was the Levita Pass in the winter, and the wind and the snow, no visibility. I mean, I really thought that was the end. So I became a very cautious, very careful driver. But, it's not only you, it's the other drivers on the road, and not the trucks really, because by percentage, most accidents, I think 90% of most accidents happen with passenger cars, not trucks. So anyway, that worries me. And trucks flip. They will flip.
I don't even, it doesn't bear thinking about. Thank you. Give us some, I'm going to have to let you go because, we've done 34 minutes and people's attention spans. We've got to consider them.
Well, hopefully you'll chop this up a little bit too.
Oh, not at all. Not for 1 minute. But I would love I know you keep telling me you're not the biggest, but your reputation is large. So, and I didn't ask you to prepare this, so maybe this is unfair, but can you give me some top level, like the most expensive artwork you've ever transported cost X, or you transport however much in a year, or you must have some like sexy stats for me.
Well, the metrics like value, we don't really have all the stats on the domestic movements. We only have the stats on the international movements because, we have to do export declarations and we have to do, customs clearance imports. I have never compiled that information, so I couldn't even swag it. But how much is the Magna Carta worth?
Oh God.
There's how many versions of it for something? I don't know what the answer is to that. So I think that's kind of priceless, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
We're not the only ones who have moved it, but we have moved it.
That's insane. Why did you move it?
I think it was a university museum in the US and a museum in the UK. It was a loan.
Funny. I don't know how you sleep at night. I'd be terrified, but I'm glad that you do. Actually, no, you told me at the beginning of this that you woke up at 4 this morning, so you don't sleep at night. That's how much you care. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm beyond grateful. I do think that Atelier 4 is the coolest and the best. And
I appreciate that.
I love being able to work with your team and now talk to you and prod you for information when I need it.
Okay, Carrie. It's been a privilege talking to you. Thank you very much.
Take care. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Scene Podcast. If you liked what you heard, I'd love it if you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to connect with us between episodes, follow us on Instagram at WatchSceneArt. I'm Carrie Scott, and I'll see you next time. Get it?